Hello and welcome to a new segment I like to call the Deck Architect, where I take decks that have been submitted to me that want approval and see if I can engineer something a little bit better. This is a show a lot of YugiTubers, pretty much every YugiTuber I've ever talked to has wanted to make this show, and they usually call it the Deck Doctor, the idea of taking a deck and trying to fix what's wrong with it. And that's a good analogy, but I really like the idea that deck building is more like being an architect than being a doctor. Like an architect who wants to build a unique building, you get to be a little creative, but you also have to build something that doesn't collapse when people get inside of it. So that's what we're going to try to do today. This was submitted by a patron named Daniel. I think that's how you pronounced it. Daniel? And they had a Rose Dragon deck. They had a couple notes for this. I asked them, like, you know, not just what is your deck, but what kind of goals, what kind of budget do you have here? I want it to be a going second deck. They enjoy that. The Book of Moon stays. It's such a dynamic and fun card to play. Alright, we're going to keep the Book of Moon. I'm not loaded on UR points. I can't acquire some. So generally feel free to do some stuff, but don't go too far. Also, no Hulk, DPE, or other generic BS. And I also like the idea of keeping at least one Rose card shown. So keeping the Rose cards in here. And they also explain they're fairly new to this game. They're not like a long-time Yu-Gi-Oh player. They happened to get, I believe they said, a Royal Rare Ruddy Rose Dragon. And they were just like, sure, why not? I've got this, I'll try to build a deck. Which I'm curious, comment in the comments, how many of you have built a deck just because you've got a Royal Rare card in the archetype? But yeah, looking over this, there are a few very kind of basic tips that I have to get right off the bat. Let's go ahead over, I have this version, and then I've copied it, a version that I'm going to make. So one general deck building philosophy is you want to play things at the most copies you can. The general rule is, if it's good enough to play, it's good enough to play at 3. And this includes even cards like Ash Blossom, where you can only activate it once per turn. I get some people who are newer to the game, and they'll ask me, like, you know, why would you play more than 1? Because if you draw all 3, you're not going to be able to use them. It's hard to explain without going into math, but basically, the point of Yu-Gi-Oh!, one of the core things, is you're going to draw 5 random cards off the top of your deck, and you want those 5 cards to be the best cards in your deck. You want to be able to execute a game plan using those. And so, basically, you want to take any good card and increase your chances of it being in those top 5 cards. If you play 3 copies of something, your chance of opening at least 1 is, I believe, like 15% in a 40 card deck. But your chances of opening 2 copies of the same card are very low. Like, if you go to two versions, the chance that you open goes from like 15% to 10%. You're losing a lot of consistency. And you're only removing the chance that you'll draw both of them by like 2%. So it's a risk-reward thing. You generally want to play everything at 3. The exceptions to this are cards that, like, you can search, cards that you can get out of the deck, cards that are only printed at 1. Obviously, you would maybe play more Raigeki if you could in a going second deck. So what we're going to start off right first of all is a lot of these 2-ofs gotta go. Although, now that I'm looking at it, I think the question is, which ones do we get rid of? What are we going to remove? And that comes to the second thing about deck building, is basically, you want to start with a win condition. Something that your deck does that either allows it to win, if you're doing like an OTK deck, or gets it in a position to win. There are some decks like Sky Striker that don't really OTK, that don't really set up an unbeatable board that you can't win with. But what they do instead is get a resource engine online, so that every turn they're like popping 2 cards the opponent controls, drawing 2 cards themselves, getting it so that you out-resource them so much that they can't possibly come back. So that brings us to the problem with Rose Dragons in general. why this archetype doesn't see a whole lot of play, and that's because it doesn't have a very good win condition. If you've never looked at the Rose Dragons, they're a bunch of plant and dragon monsters that kind of special summon themselves, and they get effects when they're used to synchro material, when they're destroyed. Basically, the whole idea is to summon Black Rose Dragon. It's Black Rose Dragon Turbo, and you have some keys where, like, you summon Black Rose blows up the entire field when it's summoned, and then you'll get some resource back. Either summon the Black Rose back, or summon some other tuners, so that after you've nuked the board, you can then get in for some damage. The problem is, you don't get in for enough damage, and a lot of decks can rebuild after being field nuked. So this, just on its own, does not have a great win condition. But, if you want to try to make it work, if you want to say, I don't care if this is great, I just want to do the best that Rose Dragons can do, then what we've got to do is focus on nuking the board as consistently as possible, and then also having some follow-up plays, some alternatives, so that after we nuke the board, we have some more things to do. So let's look at this deck and see what we can do. For starters, basically when you're looking at the Rose Dragons, these are the engine that help you make level 7s. White Rose is a level 4. If it's normal summon, special summon a Rose Dragon from the hand or graveyard. More importantly though, if you control a Dragon Tuner or a Plant Tuner, special summon this from the hand. And if it's sent to the graveyard as synchro, send a level 4 or higher plant monster from your deck to the graveyard. So this, plus any of these other tuners, is a Black Rose Dragon. If this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro, special summon a Rose Dragon from your hand or deck, except for Red Rose Dragon. And then if it was sent for the synchro of a Black Rose, you can add one of those 2 cards from your deck to your hand. We're playing one of them. It's not very good, but it's a free card, so we might as well. The other one, if this is normal or special summoned, add 1 card that mentions Black Rose Dragon from your deck to your hand, except for itself. If it's sent to the graveyard, or if this card is in your graveyard, and a face-up Rose Dragon you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, why, Konami, you can add this card to your hand. So basically, we want this. This has to be in the opening hand, so we're playing this at 3. We want this. We need a tuner, so we're probably going to play this at 3. We're probably going to play this at 3. This is a level 3 plant tuner. So this maybe works. If a face-up plant you control is sent to the graveyard, special summon this from your hand. Plant monster on the field is sent to the graveyard, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. So this seems kind of neat, because it's like, oh, you make a level 7, and then this comes out. The problem is, Black Rose Dragon is a dragon. So what'll happen is, you can send these off to make Black Rose Dragon, and then summon this, and then Black Rose Dragon will blow up the field. If you wait until after Black Rose blows up the field, you will not have a plant that is destroyed. So I think, despite the fact that it's a Rose card, we probably don't want to play this, because it doesn't really help us all that much. There are better ways to make level 7s. So let's take this out. The hand traps we're going to keep for now. You probably... A lot of people refer to this as the Master Duel tax. 3 Max C, 3 Ash Blossom. In fact, let's just go ahead and put a 3rd Ash Blossom. Because again, if you're going to play it, might as well play it at 3. Try to get as close. Calico Crow, if you control a dark monster, special summon this from your hand. It's a dark, level 2, it's a winged beast. I haven't the slightest clue why this is in here. I'm getting rid of it. Let's see, Rose Princess. If only your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this from your hand. If special summoned this way, it is treated as a tuner. You can only special 1 Rose Princess once per turn. You can discard this card to add White Rose Cloister. So this is a plant, essentially a plant tuner. You're going second, so you can special summon this, and then if you have the White Rose, you just immediately special summon that, and that's how you make Black Rose without committing to your normal summon. I think that's really good, so I think we're going to include 3 of those. When it comes to these dragons, this one is an instant on its own, because if it's normal summoned, you get to add one that mentions Black Rose Dragon. This mentions Black Rose Dragon, right? No. No, it does not. Okay, so let me look at this. You can add 1 card that mentions Black Rose Dragon. what do we have? This one does, but adding this doesn't do anything. Basil Rose Shoot. Special summon a Rose Dragon from your hand or graveyard. If this card is destroyed, you can target one Black Rose Dragon or one monster that mentions it, that is banished in your graveyard, special summon it. So yeah, I think this is something you want to play at 3. When it comes to cards that are searchable, there's kind of a debate, because you could play this at 1, and then you have it if you ever get the Rocks Rose Dragon. But I think with this one, because it's such a good recovery card, because it can get you stuff out of your hand if you happen to be stuck, or get stuff out of the grave if it gets negated or destroyed, and because if it gets set and you blow up Black Rose, you could just summon back the Black Rose, I think it's good. Evil Swarm Mandragoa is a level 4 non-tuner. If your opponent controls more monsters than you, you can special summon it. That seems decent, but I think there are better ways to make level 7s. So let's get rid of that. World Carrot Weight. If this card is in your graveyard, send one plant from your hand to the graveyard. Special summon this card. I mean, this does send a card from the deck to the graveyard. This is one of those things I remember trying to build Rose Dragons and being like, this archetype feels incomplete. Because this card says when it's used as synchro material, send a plant from the deck to the graveyard. And then there's no card in the archetype, no Rose card, no Rose Dragon card, that wants to be in the graveyard. There's almost no plants in general that want to be in the graveyard. The closest thing is World Carrot Weight, and it's not very good. But I think you play the one of because you can use it off of that. So, Tenyi Spirit Vashuda. I can kind of see why you would play this. It's a good going second card, but it doesn't have any synergy with the deck. You can't make Black Rose with it because it's a level 7. You can't use it because you have no non-effect monsters. So I think we're going to take this out. Okay, so Gameciel and Nibiru. These are both good cards that are going to help wipe your opponent's field with non-destruction. One of the things about Black Rose Dragon is it destroys everything, but if your opponent has a card that can't be destroyed, what are you gonna do? Personally, I feel like you don't really want Nibiru in this deck, because then your Black Rose Dragon, you're just using Black Rose to clear the token, essentially. You also can't do some of your plays because you'll have a Nibiru on your side of the field. What you want instead is more Kaijus. Kaijus are a good way to out cards that can't be destroyed. If they have one thing that's like immune to destruction, you Kaiju that, and then you Black Rose. If they have something that negates, you Kaiju that, and then you Black Rose. Obviously, if you have 3 Gameciels, that's the best one. 3 Kamungus will work as well if you want to mix and match, like have 3 of these and 2, whatever you have. Generally, though, the thing about Black Rose, 2400 attack. So you want to have stuff that, just in case it gets stuck over there, you can get over that. Gameciel has 22. It is the only kaiju that you can consistently beat over with Black Rose Dragon. If you go into this, you're going to crash. Anything else, you're going to get higher. So it's one of those ones where the attack stat does matter. Granted, you are going to be nuking the whole field, so if you just want to assume, you know, no fear, they're going to be blown up anyway. You can play these, especially if you're on a budget. Yeah, they play 2 field spells, Black Garden and White Rose Cloister. If you control no monsters, you can special summon a Rose Dragon or 1 plant monster from your hand. You can only use this effect once per turn. During your draw phase, before you draw, you can declare monster, spell, or trap, reveal, and if it's the declared type, level 7 or higher synchros gain 1000 attack. This field spell is absolutely awful, unfortunately. All it does is give you the ability to summon a monster that you should be able to do just about anyway. Also, you're going to make Black Rose, which means you're going to blow it up, and you get no thing from blowing it up. It's not going to be there during the next standby phase. I mean, maybe you want to run it because you could search it with her, but I honestly don't think it's worth running. Black Garden has nothing to do with Black Rose Dragon. I think it was played by the girl in the anime. But this does not help you, especially in a going second deck. So I think what you want to do, right, is we probably don't need a Raigeki. Because you're already Raigekiing the field. That's what your entire deck is around. Monster Reborn, good card to help you recover from stuff, good for stealing your opponent's monsters, also good after you Black Rose, you get the biggest monster back and you're good. You might have to worry about back row, so maybe run the 2 Lightning Storm and the Harpy's Feather Duster. If possible, I would just run 3 Lightning Storm. But assuming you don't want to spend the extra ultra rare points, that's probably fine, because that's all you want to do with it. The Super Poly, no. Get rid of the Super Poly, get rid of the targets. It's too situational. I think what you want to do instead is invest in some Forbidden Droplets. Forbidden Droplet will let you non-targeting negate your opponent's monsters, so that you can then Black Rose and not worry about their effects protecting them or doing anything else. It's also good because it lets you discard cards, and your opponent can't respond with the kind of cards that you discard. So if you discard a monster, they can't chain any monster effects to this. And you have some cards that say, where is it? If this is normal summon, summon a Rose Dragon in your graveyard. So you can discard these and then just get them back with White Rose Dragon. The Book of Moon stays. They said they wanted to play the Book of Moon. There's the part of me that says, like, if you're going to play it, you might as well play it at 3. It is a pretty good going second tool to just be like, oh, hey, look at your Defleur. Let's flip it face down. And if you don't want to flip it face down, then you've got to use your negate on that. The problem, obviously, with Book of Moon is that it doesn't work on links. So you don't want to run 3 of it, probably, because it's not going to work that way. It is a good, if they make you go first, you can activate it, but the same is true of Forbidden Droplet, which is another reason why we're putting in there. It's a one-off tech card. If they really want to play it, we'll let them play it. Now, there is something that I forgot about, which is something I remembered from when I played this deck that I realized that Daniel wasn't using, which is Blue Rose Dragon. Blue Rose Dragon says, when this card on the field is destroyed, you can target a Black Rose or a plant in the graveyard, special summon it. This is important because Red Rose Dragon says, if this is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, special summon a Rose Dragon from your hand or deck, except a copy of itself. What this means is that if you get Red Rose and you get White Rose, you use them, you make Black Rose Dragon. Black Rose Dragon comes out, and then, because this effect triggers, you summon Blue Rose Dragon. So you get to chain block. So Chain Link 1, Black Rose Dragon, Chain Link 2, Red Rose Dragon. That'll stop you from having something like Solemn Strike being used against you. Not very popular in this meta, but you know, it might come up. More importantly though, summons out the Blue Rose Dragon as Chain Link 2, then this resolves, blowing up the field. This is blown up by a card effect, which means after the field is wiped, this will summon back your Black Rose Dragon. So you'll have that 2400 that you can then poke with. The real question is, once you have that 2400 on the field, what do you do from there? Where do you go? If you haven't used this, you can set this. There's a temptation to use stuff like Solemn Judgment. And I get that, then like you can just Solemn your opponent's next normal summon. The problem is these can be dead when you're trying to go second and make your stuff. You generally don't want to play traps in blind second builds because they're useless on the first turn. You have to set it and wait. It's only good if your plan already goes off and then you can do other stuff. So what we need is something like this that is good going second, and is also something that you can set after you Black Rose to prevent your opponent from rebuilding a board. So you probably want to put 3 Imperm in here. Again, this is something, if you happen to get it while your opponent's comboing off, you can use it like a hand trap, negate their stuff. If they make a board and it's got like 2 negates, you can activate this, negate their one thing, and then try to blow up the field. If you don't need to use this, then what you can do is make your Black Rose Dragon, blow up the field, summon it back, and then set this to stop them next turn. It's just good utility all around. If you don't have the UR points for Imperm, there is a budget option, which is Forbidden Chalice. It's not quite as good. It doesn't have the same utility because it's not a hand trap. It also doesn't have the ability to negate spell traps in the same way that Imperm does. But it can be used the same way. It's a quick play spell Negate stuff on your, as soon as your turn starts, negate their face-up monsters. Or set it and use it during their turn. Alright. So we need a couple more cards. I did come up with a couple ideas for how you can make Black Rose more easily. One idea is Destrudo. Destrudo, if you don't know, if it's in your hand or graveyard, pay half your life points, target a level 6 or lower monster, special summon this, and if you do, this card's levels are reduced by the level of the monster. So this is a level 7, which means no matter what you target, you're going to be able to make a level 7 synchro, because this is a tuner. If it's a level 1, you reduce it by 1, you've got 6 in 1, etc., etc. Now the problem, of course, is that we're already playing a lot of tuners. We're playing no less than 3, but this one has the unique effect of, like, if only your opponent controls a monster, you could special summon this card. If special summon this way, treat it as a tuner. So you can special summon this, normal summon this, make yourself a thing, because this will be treated as a tuner, this is a non-tuner. If you don't open with White Rose Dragon, but instead have Destrudo, you can normal summon this as a non-tuner, special summon your Destrudo, make the Black Rose Dragon. Not great, but it is an option. It's kind of an expensive option. There is also, some of these are for other decks that I'm working on. Psy Reflector, but that involves playing a whole big package, and we don't have all the room at the moment. You'd have to play, like, this, and 3 Assault Beast in order to make that work. There is also a one-card engine if you use Mathematician and Felis, the Lightsworn, but that's probably the most expensive version ever. So this is probably the cheapest way, is to just make the Destrudo. And on Master Duel, Destrudo is at 3. So might as well play 3 Destrudo. Any non-tuner you get on your side of the field can be used. Which means, if nothing else, like, if you open up with a Max C that you can't use, like you draw it for turn, you can normal summon Max C, special summon Destrudo, make Black Rose Dragon. Carrot Weight is dead with this setup. Send 1 plant from your hand to the graveyard. You only play 1 plant, yeah. So you can definitely just take it out. Basically, the way I figured, you have 3 of those and 1 of those, so you're more likely to open with the White Rose Dragon. But Chad is pointing out, yeah, you're still going to open with that some of the time, and it's not going to be useful in your hand. If you got 41 cards, might as well just make it 40. And that's something, I feel like most people understand the idea that you want to play as few cards as possible, because, again, consistency. You want to have those 5 cards be the best 5 cards in your deck, which means running as few cards as possible. If you imagine if you only had a 5-card deck, you would get the same combo every single time. All that really leaves, then, is the extra deck, which... So, here's the thing. You had the Garden Rose Maiden in here. I think that might have been why you were playing some of the 5s. This doesn't really do anything. If it's special summoned, add a Black Garden. You don't want to do this. This is used for an entirely different playstyle. A Black Garden deck is very different. Target 1 Rose, special summon it, but that has to be in the graveyard. At this point, we don't really have a good way to make level 5s. I mean, I guess if you happen to normal summon a Rose Dragon and a Max C, you can do it. If you want to keep these in here and still play them, I think you mentioned that. We could still do it. Target 1 card in the field zone, destroy it, special summon to the controller's field, 1 Rose token. Not special summon except for Synchros. Once per chain, during the opponent's main phase, you can immediately Synchro summon. That would be cool for Synchro summoning Black Rose on the opponent's turn. The problem with that is that Black Rose says when you can, which means Black Rose Dragon misses the timing. It is still possible to use this effect to summon a Black Rose Dragon and nuke the field, but you have to do it on an open game state. You can't have, like, your opponent activates an effect, you chain this, blow this up. It has to be, like, your opponent's in the main phase, they try to pass priority, then you can nuke them. So, not super worth playing. But again, if you want to keep the Rose ones, if you've already got them, it doesn't hurt. 2 Black Rose seems good. Black Rose Moonlight Dragon, a solid choice. Clear Wing, a solid choice. We've got the level 7s. Crystal Wing, We don't have any way to make this anymore. We have 7s, we don't have 1s. So get rid of that. Stellar Wind. We have 7s, this is 9s, we don't have any level 2 tuners, we've only got level 3 tuners. No way to make it anymore. Get that out of here. Ruddy Rose Dragon. Pretty nice. The whole reason they made the deck. A level 10. If it's Synchro Summoned, banish all cards on the graveyard. If it was Special Summoned with Black Rose, or a Plant Synchro, destroy all other cards on the field. When your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy a monster, tribute this card, negate the activation, Special Summon a Black Rose. So you probably want to keep this in. If you can get an extra monster onto the field, somehow, maybe using Basil Rose Shoot, then you can make this, banish everything from the graveyard, and you have something. You can also just make Baron DeFleur, which is probably better 90% of the time. You have a Super Quantum Mech Beast. This is, I guess, if you get 2 level 3s on the field. That's a good idea to have some level 3s. I don't think this is a really good one, though. Crossroads Dragon. During the main phase, you contribute this card and a plant monster, special summon a Rose Synchro from the extra deck. It's treated as a Synchro Summon. This thing is pretty awful as well, because basically you need to invest 3 monsters to get a Black Rose, which usually only takes 2 monsters. You just go in that extra step. The only thing this benefits is you don't have to use specific levels. A monster you control is destroyed while this card is in your graveyard. You can banish this, special summon a Rose Dragon from your graveyard. It does have stuff come back. So if you want to play it, go ahead. We're fine. I think what we need to look at, though, is... because there are going to be times when, like, you special summon this and all you have is your other tuners, your other level 3s. So maybe there's some better, like, rank 3 Ixies we could be playing? Let's see what exists here. Is there anything that would help us going second? Breaksword, pretty decent, can blow stuff up. You have to blow up one of your own cards, though, and we don't have... well, if you blow up this, you could summon a Black Rose from your graveyard. So, there's that. Might as well try it. Other than that, I don't think there's anything. This can be useful. I'm not sure if you'd necessarily want to use it, but you certainly can. I would honestly probably be better with Alucard, but he's also an ultra rare, so I get it, you know, who would want to? So there's not a whole lot of rank 3s. However, you've basically at this point, what you've got is a deck that makes level 7 Synchros and only level 7 Synchros. Which means if there's other level 7 Synchros you would like to play, you could certainly put some in there. Samurai Destroyer. Basically, if it leaves the field for any reason, you can target a machine in your graveyard and summon it, and this is a machine. It can target itself. It's also not once per turn. So the only way to get rid of this is to, like, send it back to the deck, send it back to the hand, banish it, but anything that sends it to the graveyard, you're just going to get it back. Also, it's an Armades. It has a Steamroller effect. If it attacks, your opponent can activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. So if they got some back row you're worried about, or they've got some kind of effect that triggers like a Moon Mirror Shield, you can summon this. This is a great way to out that. Assuming you don't just want a Black Rose and blow up everything. That seems to be what you're doing most of the time. Dawn Dragster is a Spell Trap negate. Could be a decent thing to add on to the end. Dark Strike Fighter. During main phase 1, that does burn damage. I mean, if you want essentially rank 7 Gaga Cowboy, just do some burn damage. Tribute 1 monster, inflict damage equal to its level times 200. Is it one other monster? No, it's just any monster. So this does 1400 by tributing itself. You could also, you know, if you don't want the Dark Strike Fighter, there's always the Nightmares. I need to not be on Synchros in order for them to show up. But, you know, get 2 monsters. Again, it's not too hard to get 2 monsters on the field without using your normal summon in this deck. Make a Nightmare Cerberus, make a Phoenix, try to blow something up. Then if that doesn't work, blow up everything. So there you go. That's, I think, about as good as we're going to get it. As I said at the beginning of this, not going to be winning a whole lot anyway, because the only thing that Rose Dragons do as a deck is build Black Rose Dragon and build Ruddy Rose Dragon. And unfortunately, nuking the field going second is something that you can do with, like, Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster. It's something you can do with Evenly Matched pretty well. In fact, that's probably better because it banishes the whole field. It's not a great strategy to begin with. But if that's what you want to do, if you want a fun casual deck to play with your friends, if you just like nuking fields a lot, I think this is objectively better than the previous one. You're going to be able to make Black Rose a lot better. You're going to have better tools to negate and stop your opponent so that your Black Roses go through. You're going to be more likely to be able to bring those back so that you can get damage in. And you have some follow-up plays that are more consistent with your level 7 engine. Negates, things that stop back row, Moonlight by itself. I mean, this was already here, but it's pretty good. So hopefully that helped Deneo. Hopefully it helped some of you out there. Let me know if you like this show, if you'd like to see it improved somehow, if you got any recommendations. And of course, until next time, good luck and have fun.